All right, hello everybody. It's the Meista from Brews and Tunes. Cheers! I am beyond excited today. This is the second time I've interviewed him, but I am interviewing the one and only Michele Guaitoli of also known as Meek from multiple bands, including Kaledon, Temperance, Visions of Atlantis. Overture, Ship of Theseus. I don't even know how you keep it straight, Meek.
No, well, some are projects, of course. But
yes,
first of all, thank you for hosting me. It's a pleasure. It's the second time that we see each other, as you said, and it's always wonderful. We always have a good time, and I'm sure that tonight we will have another good one.
Yes.
So yeah, when it comes to keeping it up, you have to distinct like projects from real bands, which already makes a huge difference because sometimes, there are studio adventures that are meant to stay in the studio and to be released as studio albums, as for instance, the Ship of Theseus project. And then there are real bands, which are actually bands in which you have duties, real duties.
Right.
And there the organization becomes interesting.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good distinction there for sure. So I know this is probably a really loaded question, but what have you been up to lately?
Well, to be honest, this is something that I can answer with something new for finally, because like 1 year ago, I would have told you, yeah, I'm locked at home. I'm working on new stuff. I'm creating new projects. I'm, preparing new music, writing new music. Finally, I can tell you I've been touring again. So this question comes with a warm heart answering to you, telling you finally I'm alive again. Lately, I've been touring quite a lot with Visions of Atlantis specifically. We've been playing like around 40 shows in the US. Then we got back to Europe and we performed 10 release shows for the new records Pirates. We played the first 2 summer festivals. So let's say that right now the main focus on the live activity is on Visions, because we have this new record which is called Pirates, which of course it's a big thing for us and it's going really well, and of course it's stealing, let's say, the 80% of my artistic life in this moment.
Gotcha. Cool. Very cool. Yeah, that's one thing that's great, because so the last time I saw you, well, not just spoke with you, but actually watched you perform live was with Visions of Atlantis during the Wanderers tour when in America, and you were touring with Unleash the Archers and Dragon Force. And it actually, I'm not sure if the show that I saw you at was the very last show, because it was in March of 2020. So of course, COVID hit right then. And I know it was a little tricky for you getting home back to Italy at that time. And yeah, I think the tour got canceled. I think you guys may have played one more show after Salt Lake City. But then, yeah, the whole thing, everything shut down immediately after that, of course.
We played one show, but in Mexico.
We
played one show in Mexico right after, because Salt Lake was the really last show that we played in the US. And then we had to flew somewhere else, because if you remember about this, the biggest problem was that every airport was shutting down the doors to every non-American citizen at the beginning. And we as Europeans were basically forbidden to fly out from everywhere. So we had to fly to Mexico, where luckily we had a show that was scheduled at the festival, Hell and Heaven Fest, if I remember correctly. And from there we got home with super crazy expensive tickets that were the only options that we had. Otherwise we would have had to stay in Mexico like refugees for who knows how long.
Yeah, no kidding. Wow, it's harrowing. I mean, it was pretty wild, but it's so nice to hear that and see that you guys are back on the road, kind of picked up right where you left off, apart from, of course, fantastic new music from Pirates. So yeah, just so cool that you're out and about again, and you're currently in Germany, correct?
I am in Berlin right now. I'm answering you from the streets of Berlin, where I'm having a great time, to be honest. Nice. Berlin is a wonderful city. It's the first time that I came here as a mature person, because I was here like when I was 18 or 17 in a school trip. But of course, the perception of the entire city is different when you grow up.
Right. Now, are you there to do a show or just for fun, or?
Let's say that it's business related. It's business related. Like the headquarters of Napalm Records are here in Berlin, and I'm having a business trip. Let's say, let's put it down this way.
Cool, very cool. Speaking of new things going on, so your other band, Kaledon, just announced very recently that you have a brand new album coming out. I believe it's coming out here in September. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. Absolutely correct.
So, and this is the seventh part of the Legends of the Forgotten Rain chapters, and this is of course called Evil Awakens. And I saw the preview of the album cover, which is incredible. What an amazing album cover! And I cannot wait to hear the music from this album.
Oh, that's really cool. Well, the cover has been appreciated even more than it went beyond our expectations. Actually, it's the first time that we collaborate with Oleg, which is a Russian artist, actually, and like he works with several other metal bands, but this was the first time that Kaledon approached him. And honestly, we were super satisfied of the result. But the appreciation that we're receiving is going beyond this appreciation that we had on it. It's fantastic. It's like wonderful. And everyone is telling, like everyone who's talking about the new Kaledon record is telling me, wow, guys, the cover is amazing. So kudos to Oleg.
Yeah. And like I said, I cannot wait to hear the album. As all the projects and bands that you're in, it's always just top-notch, stellar, incredible power metal. And symphonic metal. I mean, just everything you do is there's always a touch of magic to it. It seems like, for me at least, it's just a joy to listen to. And so I can't wait to hear this album, of course, in September. It's very, very excited to hear it. What can you tell us about the album and kind of the vibe and the feel and the writing and the direction of the band? I'm really curious about that.
So first of all, I think like I owe you some thanks for what you just said. I guess that this is the warm Italian heart that lies inside my chest. I can't approach to anything that I do musically without putting my 100% of my heart into it. So I guess that this is what comes out of the records. And thank you for your words. It's extremely appreciated, and it means a lot, of course. Going straight to the point, the thing is that this album was never planned, and basically COVID made it happen. And now we are all happy that at least on this side, we had the time to share this. Because, when I joined Visions, and of course, with the really good outturn of Temperance in the last years, my musical life was extremely busy. And Kaledon and we had some, of course, turning points in which we were up to say, guys, maybe it's better to stop. It's better not to go on and to part ways. But this was exactly in sync with the beginning of the pandemic, because in theory, in 2020, I should have played like something like 100 shows, the Taria tour with Temperance, the super long US tour with Visions, a European tour in September with Visions, and the perspective from the point of view of Kaledon were deadly. Like I could have never actually had time to dedicate some space to the band. At the same time, Tommy has got into a wonderful new project which is called Sick and Beautiful, and Alex and Paolo, which are respectively the guitar player and the keyboard player, they started another new project in Italy, and things were going well to everyone on the musical side, but not as a band.
Gotcha.
Then the pandemic happened, and we found ourselves at home, and we told each other, but now we really have the time to dedicate some attention, some focus to Kaledon. Why wasting it if we can actually make it? So we, as many other bands, we finally found some time to really put our minds and hearts into the new music of Kaledon. And this record turned out to be, again, like better than we could have ever expected. Alex is going crazy. Alex is the mastermind of Kaledon since the very beginning. He's one of the only two members that founded the band, still active in the band together with Tommy. And like every time, if you talk to him, he will tell you, this is the best record of Kaledon ever. I'm speechless. I could have never expected something that good. And he's really, really excited. And to be honest, I agree, because we had the maturity and the time, and we had no limits in terms of time in the studio. In terms of, we had no rush I would say, to record this record. And it came out so spontaneously that I really feel like there is a different vibe compared to everything done before, when things had to be done because of this or this other reason. There is a long gap, between this record and the previous album. It's
Right.
like 6 years or 5 years. So it really came out spontaneously, and I believe that spontaneous things are the best.
Nice. Are there plans to do any touring with Kaledon at this point?
So this is an interesting question. Like, let's say that the band is restarting. So right now there are some contacts with managements and booking agencies. Of course, it's hard to say if any of this will turn out into a real deal. But without deals, of course, touring makes less sense, especially considering all the duties that other band members have. Of course, we will plan a release show, and then we will just go with the flow. We really want to keep things spontaneous. So the more you force it, the worse it is, I would say.
Gotcha. And of course you're still busy, touring with Visions of Atlantis, and I know you have some shows lined up and festivals lined up as well. And I think if I saw correctly, isn't there a festival coming up where both Visions of Atlantis and Temperance are playing together?
No, actually, no.
Okay.
This is, but there is there is a show in which I won't be with Temperance because I'm playing with Visions of Atlantis. This is happening.
Okay.
Unfortunately, on the 12th of August, Temperance will be playing in Croatia together with Tarja in a really nice festival, and I will be in Austria at Metal on the Hill. So,
okay, gotcha.
But see, this is exactly the problem. The moment in which you accumulate too many things all together, it becomes hard to organize, and of course things seems to be too much forced sometimes. I'm lucky that with Temperance and Visions we are under the same label, so things are kind of easier to organize because everything is under control, indeed, at Napalm Records. But when you start putting your hands in too many, or better, when you start putting your feet in too many shoes, it becomes hard to decide which is the right one at the right moment.
Gotcha. Yeah, that totally makes sense. I can imagine that it could get a little overwhelming, and I would imagine sometimes even like almost confusing to some degree as far as kind of like what you're doing. I maybe not, but I mean, because you're such a professional, but it seems like it would, yeah, you kind of get almost lost in it. I would imagine sometimes if you had so many shows going on with all these different bands and flying back and forth, and yeah, I would imagine that could get a little nutty.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely correct, and this is what has to be avoided in order also to maintain the professional image of the band high, because sometimes I mean, I'm not the most active musician in the world because we have Mike Portnoy who plays in like 10,000 project things,
Right.
or Billy Sheehan. There are musicians that are really overwhelmed by bands, and they still make it perfectly, because if you listen to Sons of Apollo, or if you listen to Adrenaline Mob, or whatever project Mike is in, it's just wonderful, how well he handles this. But at the same time, it's important, to keep the identity of the band high and consistent, and this is something that always have to be kept in mind to avoid chaos, especially for the fans more than for me or the other musicians that are involved in several projects.
Yeah, agreed. and that's one thing is that and I would definitely put, I think you're in that same caliber where there's always you have such a distinct voice and a distinct presence, and that's what I love so much. And nothing against any of the past members of any of these bands, but I think specifically with Visions of Atlantis, you and Clemmy, I mean, that is perfection vocally. It's and it seemed like it kind of re-energized the entire band when you joined, and I think also with Temperance too, with that trio of vocals. I mean, those harmonies are mind-blowingly good. I mean, the musicianship is fantastic, of course, but I mean, just the harmonies of you and Marco and Alicia alone is worth every dime of the album. And I specifically the new album, which I know you can't see, but I'm holding up for the audience.
Okay, I see it.
Oh, you can't see it. Yeah,
no, I can see you, of course.
Okay. Oh yeah, Diamante is man, what a phenomenal album. Of course, that came out last year, but man, it's so good. It's just I can listen to it all, every day, just to listen to those vocal harmonies. You guys just nail it every time. It's incredible. And I know you're and you brought this up, when we talked before, that, I mean, you basically have known each other for a very, very long time. So you're all very comfortable with each other, but, and I think that shows, but you also are really good, I think, at challenging each other.
But that's the thing, when you are, it's a brotherhood, and you want your brother to shine, and at the same time, you don't want your brother to be, to steal your side. So it's a balance that is needed to be found. And this is something that I agree, it's kind of hard to find, because when you have to share duties with others, it's always interesting, and you have to be humble. Actually, I think that being humble is the key to reach this balance, because you have to understand where are your limits and accept your limits, and accept the fact that someone else goes better than you in certain fields. And the moment in which you find this balance, like 100,000 roads open in front of you, and you can choose the best path. That's the real key, in my opinion, to share vocal duties, but in general, to share a musical project with someone else. Some people, they just don't understand, and I'm not pointing at anyone, it's just an overall suggestion. Like sometimes you just lose track of where your limits are, and you pretend, or you really try too hard to shine somewhere where you're not shining, where you can't shine because of natural or inner, I would say, limits that sometimes are just to be accepted. The moment in which you become friends to your limits, rather than challenging them, you can start like doing whatever you want. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, that well said. And that's one thing. It's interesting, in terms of, and I don't know if you have any limits vocally. I don't, but and I've seen you multiple times, and you always blow me away. And one thing I always wondered, when we spoke last time, I had asked you kind of like who were some of your big vocal influences, and the one that surprised me, even though I've seen you sing Metallica, but it surprised me that you said that Hetfield was one of the vocalists that influenced you. And obviously you sing in more of a power metal kind of operatic.
Sure.
You have a huge range. Have you ever considered doing a thrash metal album?
Well, Kaledon is the thing that goes the closest to thrash metal with their riffing. So right. I think that this is where I have to say. But for instance, I believe that what you are saying, for instance, like that my range is unlimited, is because I take advantage of my range in the right field. I'm pretty sure that the moment in which I start playing a style which is not really fitting my voice, all the limits would come out. Okay. But this is so obvious, at least from my perspective. The moment in which I pretend to be, I don't know, a pop singer, with this super soft and super light voice, it would emerge the fact that my voice can't be too soft, that I have limits on the softness, that are like my softness is perfect as long as I'm into the metal jar. But the moment in which you compare me, I don't know, to pick like Ed Sheeran, just to pick a super huge and super known name, I don't think I would ever sing his songs in the right way. And that would be like a bad move, like the bad choice, like the way to showcase my limits rather than my powers.
Interesting.
But this is my 2 cents. Again, it's like maybe I just sing something from Ed Sheeran and people would love it. So it's just my consideration.
Yeah, I would imagine, and you'd probably do it in your own way anyway. So I have a hard time picturing you, or I have a hard time not liking something that you would do. It's hard to conceive that, I think.
No, I see what you mean. But this is, for instance, one of the reasons why, as you mentioned, like James Hetfield is one of my biggest influence, because I believe that he is one of these voices that you listen for 2 seconds, if not less, and you really recognize. Like recognizability of any vocals is like the key, in my opinion. The moment in which you listen to a singer and you can't understand who's singing because you mess it up with someone else, this is where, for me, you fail as a singer. The moment in which you say, okay, this voice is Michele, or this voice is James Hetfield, or this voice is Bruce Dickinson, or this voice is Russell Allen, this is where you win, you know? And I think that this is also one of the peculiar things of Temperance, and of course of Visions, because the moment in which you listen for 3 seconds to Clementine or Alessia or Marco, they have all super recognizable voices. You can't mix them up with anyone else.
Agreed. Yeah, definitely agreed. Yeah, I mean, just that kind of power that and melody. Yeah, it's really a thing to behold. And that's I'm hoping someday I'll get to see Temperance live. I know when we spoke before, you weren't so sure about Temperance getting to the States anytime soon. But yeah, that's maybe I just need to come over there. I would love to see Temperance live. That's kind of one of those dream live bands for me is seeing Temperance live. That would be incredible. Because I definitely watched. I love the fact that you guys did during the pandemic. I love the fact that you guys did a lot of video. You post a lot of videos of you guys in the studios and doing acoustic stuff, and that was great. That was so fun to watch. Really cool stuff.
Thank you. Super appreciated.
Yeah, great. It's just amazing stuff. And I know it's only been it was just this past year that the Temperance album came out. Do you guys have anything in the works right now? Are you starting to write new material for the next album, or are you too busy at this point?
Yes, of course. Like I believe that Marco is one of the most productive creatures in the world because defining him man is limitation, in my opinion. He's superhuman sometimes. He's always amazing me how creative he is, and of course there is like no day in which he doesn't put down something. Of course, then he makes a selection and he divides songs per the infinite projects in which he is in, or stylish wise, he divides the song, to understand which song is better for Temperance, which song is better to be forgotten, which song is better to go to somewhere else. But Marco is always writing, and of course there is new material coming for Temperance. Like I can't imagine a moment in which there is nothing new in the Temperance's house. So yeah, the answer is yes.
Cool. Yeah. It seems like he's a very prolific writer. When I interviewed him right when Diamante was coming out, or it had just barely been released. And and he told me during that interview that I think he was already writing new material. The album had barely come out and he's already moving forward. Which it's one thing that we talked about that I thought was interesting and kind of funny that he brought up was the fact that the title track, that you guys recorded it multiple times in different languages, which I thought was a really cool idea. But also it sounds like it was pretty challenging too, to some degree.
Yes, indeed. They are all available on Spotify now. I showed you I have the vinyl album, which doesn't have all the versions on it, but I ended up buying it on iTunes because I wanted to own all the versions of it, which I thought was great. And I think he told me it was the German that really challenged him the most because he does not speak German. So he said that was tricky. Yeah. Let's say that like right now I am learning German, and the more I try to understand this language, the more I ask myself why some things are happening in the grammar of German. But it's part of the metal world, I would say. As a metalhead, I don't think you can avoid German. So I decided to surrender and face this limit of mine and try to learn it. But singing in German is hard. There is no this is a statement. Like singing in German is hard if you're not a German native.
Yeah, I would imagine so. That's cool that you're learning it though. That's cool. I should, because there's always there's so many great German metal bands. In particular, I think of somebody like Sodom, who does not so much anymore, but their early days they had a lot of songs in German. And I have no idea what they're saying, and I always thought I should learn German so I know.
The thing is that this might be an interesting thing to say during this interview. Like the biggest market in Europe is the German market. This has to be considered. Like it's because for you probably, like, you know, the two biggest metal markets in the world are the US market and the German market. Like German drives the entire Europe when it comes to metal market, just because of the. I think this is due to the size of the country. You know, Germany is huge; is one of the biggest countries in Europe, and the number of copies sold in Germany tops every other country for basically every band.
Interesting.
You know, even like if you take a huge name, we take Powerwolf, they enter the chart in Germany at number first, you know?
Wow.
And it's hard to reach the same positioning for every band in any other country when it comes to the metal jar. Of course, many do it. Many bands just do it, just reach the first position in the charts, even in other countries. And this is a really good sign. But the German chart is like the main reference to understand the impact of a band on the market. This is no secret, and like if you speak with any professional, he will tell you the same, because this is an extremely important focus country for the European market. And of course, the US is a different world. You know, like entering the charts in the US is another huge achievement, because it allows you to hope to tour in the US, which is something that all the European bands crave for.
Oh yeah, I would imagine. Yeah, I mean, it's such a huge market here, and it's such a vast country, and there's so much to see. I would imagine, yeah, it's got to be somewhat fun to tour. But at the same time, God, I always thought, you know, I've always wondered, and I'll ask you, that is it just completely exhausting to tour? I mean, I'm sure it's fun, but at the same time, it's got to be just sometimes you're just like, oh my God, another city, another, you know, just.
No. Well, of course, this is an extremely personal question, because sometimes you speak with musicians and they are extremely tired, as you said. Sometimes you speak with other musicians and they would tell you, you know what, my life is here. I'm one of those, for instance. Like, share this with so many other friends, and I really do feel like I'm home when I'm in the tour bus, and I'm not home when I'm in my bed. It's really interesting. But yeah, I feel like I belong to the road, and I'm really excited by the fact that I'm seeing another city. And when you are touring, you don't even really see the city. So the moment in which you come somewhere for the third or fourth time, you just say to yourself, okay, nice, I visited this and this other part, now I can go to the next one. So I mean, there is a world to discover, and when you can do it thanks to the activity that you choose or make or made to do in your life, I think it's just wonderful. So if you ask me specifically this question, I will tell you, no, touring is just amazing. I never get tired.
Nice. Well, and I think it shows too, especially you know, seeing you live. It's, you know, and I've seen you with Visions of Atlantis a couple times, and you can tell you guys are you really enjoy being on stage with one another. Like, you all play off of each other really well, and yeah, I mean, you can tell that you get a lot of joy out of performing live, that it brings you a lot of joy, and that you love to interact with the audience and be up on stage, which is what, as an audience member, that's what you want to see. You know, that's so cool to see that.
Definitely. But you know, the thing is that I'm a musician from the old generation, I would say, because there is a huge gap, huge generational gap between new musicians and old style musicians that I am somehow facing in my chats and in my talks with other people, especially with people, of course, from the new generation. Like, we have been grown up. We have grown up like in the rehearsal room, you know, like in a like 4x2, 4x3 square meters room with a super loudness of the speakers of the guitar amplifier right inside your ears, with a drummer pushing it hard at 1 meter from you, like screaming as loud as you could to make your voice heard through the super small PA that you could afford when you were a kid. And I've been doing the clubs, I've been doing like the bars, the pubs, then the first venues. So I reached what I have right now after a very, very, very long background of shitholes in which I've been
Right.
performing, because this was the only way for me to perform. Then after 2000, 2005, like the YouTube generation grew up, and right now a lot of musicians, they come right from YouTube, they grow up on YouTube, they make themselves noticed through YouTube. Sometimes they are, most of the times, to be honest, they are super musicians in terms of musicianship and in terms of skills, performance skills, but they lack, or better, because lack sounds like an accusation, they missed the kind of experience that I had in the past, and me as much as so many other musicians. So the moment in which I get on stage, to me, this is like on a big stage in the US, for instance, this is an achievement that I reached after 20 years of my life, starting from, the bathroom of the friends in which I performed my first song.
Right. Cool.
And I never forget this. I always think of the moment in which I jump on stage for the first song, I always tell myself, think of where you started, think of where you first played the first shows. And yeah, it's
Wow.
really, it gives me such a huge joy inside of my heart that I mean, this is what you see.
Nice. That's cool. That's a beautiful thought. That's a beautiful image of, you jumping on stage, in front of a huge audience, and, harkening back to the, thinking back, harkening back to those old days of, like you said, playing shitholes, or singing into your comb in your bathroom, when you were a kid or whatever. It's cool to, that kind of a journey, that musical journey that you've taken. And I get what you're saying, where, and, definitely no shade at younger musicians, but yeah, it's a very different world where they have not necessarily grown up in this in touring.
It's just different, and it's just different experiences, because for them the story might be, I passed from my room, playing alone, to a stage in which I'm playing with others. So it's just completely different as an experience. It's just that, like, maybe I'm too romantic, but I believe that my fight to reach what I had was a bit harder, a bit more difficult compared to what others can do right now. But I mean, mine as much as, everyone else who was born and grown up in my generation.
Yeah. I guess the difference now would be there's so much more music out there. I would imagine for a young musician, it's got to be tough trying to, fight and vie for position with,
Sure.
With all these streaming services, and just trying to get noticed, I'm sure, is not easy anymore. Whereas, back in the day, especially, people like you and I, in our age, especially in the early days of metal of the 80s, there weren't that many bands. I mean, there were a lot of bands, but there weren't that many, so you kind of knew everything that was out there. And now it's overwhelming to some degree, and sometimes in a good way, maybe, because there's a lot of cool stuff coming out. A lot of cool new bands and lots of interesting music being produced, but it's almost overwhelming, especially for an old guy like me, because I have way too many records and CDs, and I keep buying because I'm just fascinated by new music. But yeah, I'm sorry, I'm rambling now, but I totally get your point.
It's interesting, what you're saying, and it's also really true. The thing is that there are more musicians also, like. Somehow, back in the days when you were playing the guitars, you were the rebel. You see what I mean? Like,
right,
you are a rebel. So not everyone was feeling comfortable in showing himself playing guitars or approaching the electric guitar in the way that is done right now. Right now, it's common. Like it has become more common, and the real difficulty for the new musicians is to stand out, because there are so many musicians. They are all good. Because they have, the technology, and they have the ways to reach a way better level of musicianship than what we had back in the days, because they have, tutorials, they have video lessons, they have an instant access to everything that is online, and not only online. If you want to study with your favorite guitar player right now, you can, start a Zoom lesson, and if he agrees, you can study, I don't know, with Steve A or Satriani, because they might allow it. Of course, it's random names, but you see what I mean. Back in the days, you could only see some masterclass from Steve I if you bought, the cassette with the video lesson. It was inaccessible. It was, I mean, not inaccessible. It was so hard to reach some content that right now it's free and it's all over the place. And this, of course, allows new musicians to easily get what they need to become fantastic guitarists or bass players or singers or whatever. But as many as they are, it becomes difficult to stand out and to be the one who is actually so personal that can be chosen for this or this other project.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's an excellent point. Which dovetails into my next question actually really well. I was curious, do you do any teaching? Do you do vocal lessons at all?
I used to do it. Right now, luckily, I'm overwhelmed with everything else. So I quit a couple of years ago because I realized that I couldn't be constant enough to like take someone under my wing for a journey, because you don't learn to sing from one day to another. It's a path that you have to follow with your teacher, and it takes time. You know, some people are just super fast and maybe in 1 or 2 months they are ready for the stage. Some people might take longer, and some journeys they last years, you know. And the moment in which I'm here for one day and then the next week I have a show and then the following week I start a tour and I'm away for 3 months, I just can't grant my constancy to my students. So it's, yeah, I would be a ripoff if I would keep teaching right now.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, I think, well, I'm a terrible singer, but I think any time doing any vocal lesson with you would be amazing. But and definitely not a ripoff. But yeah, I totally get where you're coming from. You know, I mean, as far as, yeah, your time is stretched pretty thin. So yeah, you're very busy. You're probably, man, you got to be one of the busiest musicians out there right now. It seems, from what I can tell.
You're not the first one who tells me. Yeah, I always remember about, again, Portnoy, Billy Sheehan, but yeah,
true. Yeah.
Maybe after them I follow.
Yeah, you're definitely up there. You're up there on the list, that's for sure. So I don't want to keep you all night, but I did, and I know. So when we spoke last time, and let me see if my memory serves me correctly. I don't have the best memory, but if I remember correctly, my last question, my usual last question, of course, is always the Brews and Tunes pairing question. You know, what beer, on a Friday night, Saturday night, what beer are you drinking and what are you listening to? And I believe you said Leffe, and at the time you were really into the band Periphery. Correct. Is that right? Yes. Oh, okay. Cool.
I mean, I can't recall perfectly if it was that moment, but it sounds extremely like Leffe is a constant in my life. So cool. Absolutely yes. Periphery were huge in my life for a period. So yeah, that sounds extremely possible.
So what any beers you're drinking right now while you're there in Berlin, and what are you listening to right now? What do you like right now?
So when it comes to beer, actually, I'm in a cider moment.
Oh, okay, cool. Oh, good.
I'm more into cider lately. I've discovered it thanks to, of course, I knew about cider before, but let's say that I got more into cider thanks to the sound technician of Visions of Atlantis, who pronounced the name in a really interesting way. He say, cider. So now we mock him for this, and he got me into cider, and now I'm addicted for a while. I mean, not a real addiction, of course, but you see what I mean. I like it really much. So rather than beer, I would suggest cider of any kind right now. It's even less alcoholic most of the times.
Cool.
So when it comes to music, to be really honest, right now I'm into Ghost.
Oh,
I don't know if you have been listening to the last record.
Yes.
I fell in love with them at Metal Days 2019 or something, 2018 or 2019, in which they were playing a series, the Grammy Awards song during some at a beer place. Like there was this beer stand and they had music and they were playing this song, and I was like, wow, why didn't I ever got into this band more? So I started to dig them, and I literally fell in love. So I follow them with Meliora, Prequel, and now I was super excited with the new record, Impera. And the funny story is that at the first listen, I was super bummed. I thought album is absolutely not as good as I expected it to be. Then I listened to it again. Then I listened to it again, and it grew me in an incredible way. And
Nice.
right now, I literally love the record. And I think that the more we keep on listening, I will love it even more. It's just one of these records that doesn't hit you at the very first time. At least this is my experience. But now I can't get it out of my mind. There are a couple of tracks that really stick in my mind.
I agree. I totally agree with you. Yeah, I was kind of the same way with, almost with every Ghost album when it's come out. I've always been not so sure, and then the more I listen to it, I really get into it. And one thing I've always loved about that band is, for me personally, they remind me a lot of the Blue Oyster Cult. So, and I'm a huge Blue Oyster Cult fan. Just some of the riffs and the melodies kind of remind me of Blue Oyster Cult and the dark themes. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Ghost. I think they're great. In fact, I'm actually, you might find this interesting, I'm interviewing he's no longer a member of Ghost, but he was a Nameless Ghoul.
Nameless Ghoul.
Yeah, I guess his nickname then was Water, and now he goes by the name Mercury, and he's in a band called Priest, which is actually not metal. It's more like a dark wave band.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, so I'm interviewing him tomorrow, so I'm really excited about that. So that should be interesting. But and I guess he's willing to talk about his Ghost years, so I'm really curious about what that was like, being a Nameless Ghoul. Sure. So yeah, that should be interesting.
That's yeah, totally. I will follow this episode of yours because I'm interested myself to be really honest. Yeah, the thing is that Ghost somehow, they don't invent anything, but they do what they do so well, Yeah. And as you said, there is some retro progressive vibe. There is I really feel like there is some Metallica vibe in there.
Yeah.
On some riffing guitar works, The voice is different, but guitar wise, there is this almost Black Album-ish sounds that always comes out in every record. And of course, they have melodies. Like, they really do music. This is what I appreciate. Like, if you strip the song, every song of them, if you strip them and just listen to the melody, it's beautiful melodies.
Yeah,
it's just beautiful melodies, and this is what makes a difference to me in every record, because sometimes if you take out the guitars and the bass and the drums and you just leave everything on the vocals, it's just not good. It's just not efficient. It just doesn't catch you. With Ghost, I just think that melodies are on top of everything else.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's great. Speaking of great melodies, so tonight I will be listening to this lovely album again, and in your honor, I'm drinking a beer from your fellow countrymen. So I'm doing a Moretti.
Birra Moretti. Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah. So that will be my evening. So. Meek, thank you so much for chatting with me. It's always a pleasure. You're just such an amazing talent and just such a gracious and friendly person. And I've heard that from many people before. You're like one of the nicest people, not just in metal, but in the music industry. In a world where the music industry can be pretty nasty sometimes, and you're one of these people that's genuine and friendly and gracious, and you care about your fans. So cheers to you, my friend. And thank you very much so much for meeting with me.
It's my pleasure, and as always, like, whenever you want, anytime, I'm here. My time will always be welcoming you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.